Welcome and thank you for listening to Open Heart with Lisa. And before I get started, if you've been listening to me for a couple of seconds, I like to give you a little disclaimer. So I want to let you know what Open Heart with Lisa is and what Open Heart with Lisa is not. Open Heart with Lisa is not a therapy session with a psychiatrist or a psychologist or not even a marriage counselor. I'm not any of those. Rather, I've decided to have a candid conversation primarily focusing on relationships and life's issues from the male's perspective. His ability, I believe, to express his feelings and his heart can afford us ladies an opportunity to hear his thought processes. We get an insight into his world. The unadulterated conversations, and they are provocative, that I'm going to have with these gentlemen, I think is going to help many of us in our own relationships. And I just want to say this, ladies, I don't want you to get upset because whatever gentleman I have on, he's not talking about you. He's not talking about me. He's not women bashing. He's speaking from his own life experience. He's telling his story, and we all have a story to tell. So let me get started, and I just want you to know the gentleman I have on, as you know, if you've been listening, my male guests are anonymous. And we have a gentleman, I'm going to call him Henry. Henry from New York. Henry, are you on the line?
I am. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Henry. So glad you could participate. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor. It's my privilege to be able to have a transparent discussion on this topic. I think it's going to be very exciting.
Okay. And ladies, I think you're going to enjoy Henry's perspective. Remember, he's not talking about you. He's not talking about me. He's speaking from his life experience. So the topic is going to be Henry. And this is an interesting one. And I want to ask you, do you feel dating should be held to the same standards as marriage? I want to say it again because I think this is a heavy topic, and there's some people who see it one way, some of us see it differently. Do you feel dating should be held to the same standards as marriage? What do you feel, Henry?
Well, I personally believe that in order to do that question any type of justice, there has to be clarity as it relates to what dating is and as it relates to what marriage is, because when I think of dating, I think that dating is a part of the human mating process, whereby you have two people that meet socially for companionship, and then it moves beyond the level of friendship, or it then takes the aim of each assessing the other's suitability as a partner in an intimate relationship or marriage. So when you think about dating, it can be a form of courtship consisting of social activities done by two people, okay? But the term dating in and of itself really has it has several meanings. So let me see if I could just kind of break it down, because if someone wants to date, it becomes a step to a commitment to the present, right? But if someone wants to marry, they're making or taking a commitment to the future. So marriage is a greater expression of hope. So, I think that in order to do this topic justice, that has to be clear between two individuals. And I think the problem for many and for most is that they never communicate. They never really talk about where they are, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. So oftentimes they try to move too fast, because I gave a progression here. Because, again, two people meet socially for companionship. Then they go beyond to the next level of friend. They go beyond the level of friendship. And then they make an assessment as to whether they're suitable as partners in an intimate relationship or marriage. See, that's a progression. And
that's
see,
right.
most people don't follow the progression. They try to just jump in, and they don't understand that, you have to take baby steps. We say you crawl before you walk. Most people want to walk before they crawl. And that's where you
true.
that's where you get into problems, because it's a form of courtship, but in this dating process, it consists of social activities done by two people. So in these social activities, first of all, you got to be social. Secondly, there are activities that have to be done between the two parties that are involved just to see if it's a fit.
Right.
And oftentimes, it's not a fit, but they try to put a circle into a square. And then it produces a problem.
I want to ask you about something that you said. It's two things, and I find them quite profound.
Okay.
When you talk about activities, and it is when you date, it leads to activities. And activities tend to have to deal with money.
Okay.
I want to talk about the money aspect, but before I get to the money, when you're saying a circle fitting into a square,
yes,
I want to, from your experience, do you find sometimes that you have dated women and you kind of felt, well, maybe this is not going to work out, she might not be for me? And did you ever have a conversation with a woman that you were dating and you had to kind of break it to her in whatever way you break it to her, and, hey, I think you're great, but maybe this is not going to work out for you and I? Do you find that that's a difficult conversation to have, or do you find that you stop calling her? Because I heard a woman a couple of weeks ago, she was talking about men, and she says what men tend to do when they don't want to date anymore, they stop returning your calls or they slowly stop calling you. So are you the type who will have an honest dialogue about the circle not fitting into the square? Are you the type that tends to just, slowly decline and accepting calls and giving calls? What do you do?
Okay. I think that, and I define that again, for me, I have protocols and I have practices. Okay? Why do you laugh? Why do you laugh?
I love it. Protocols and practices. Take notes, everybody. Go ahead. Because I believe that there are protocols and practices to dating, really. And really to understanding that, dating is two people trying out a relationship. They're trying it out, okay? And so as they're trying it out, they're exploring whether they're compatible by doing things, by going out together in public as a couple. Doesn't mean that you may or may not be having sexual relationships. That's okay, whether or not that's the case. But still, you're trying it out, you're exploring it, and you want to see whether you are compatible. And oftentimes, somebody can be a great person doesn't mean it's a great person for you. Right. So it's not a fit. And I used to try to, when I was younger, make it fit or make it work because they were a good person. But now as I've gotten older, I realize that, I don't have the time that I used to have. My time is valuable. My time is precious. I'm not getting any younger. I'm certainly getting older. So I have to maximize my time. I have to maximize my moments. And in doing so, you have to have that communication. Now, here's what communication is defined as, Lisa. Communication is really, it comes from two words, really. Communication is where we get our word communion, and communion is where we get our word common union. Right? So there has to be a common union. And if there's not, it doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. It doesn't mean you're right, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. It doesn't mean you're bad, I'm good, or I'm bad, you're good. It's just not a fit for us. And so we have to be two adults that can agree to disagree and move on and still respect each other and say, okay, I respect him for at least being able to have that conversation, because I will have that conversation now. Before I did not. I will, because, again, I don't have a lot of time and I don't have time to waste. Do you find that from your experience it's difficult in to have those conversations? No, let me put it like this. Do you find that when you have the conversation, the woman will receive it in a pleasurable way, or does she get offended? Because I know some women, if you would have had that conversation, they would, instead of appreciating it, they would take great offense. Not understanding it's a blessing that you're being honest, because you could just you could just mislead somebody. What do you find has been your experience?
I can't say that it's been clear cut all across the board, because if each individual is different. But yes, some women do take offense to it because they take it personal, and it's really not personal. Some things are needful, and they take it as being hurtful. It's not being hurtful; it's just being needful. The conversation is needed. It's something that needs to be said, because just like I don't have a lot of time, likewise they don't either. So. We need to have this conversation, and I find that somebody, mature can take it for what it is. Somebody who may not be as mature sometimes take it a little bit more personal. And then two people just may not be on the same page, and they just may be at different points in their lives. I realized I just had a scenario here lately that I met this young lady a few years back. It was probably like 3 or 4 years back, and she basically said to me, I like you, I think you're a nice guy, but I just don't think we're going in the same direction. You're not on the same page as me. Nobody had ever told me that.
Okay.
And I took it personal. Like, what do you mean? You're not on my level. I basically told her, you're not on my level. How can you come off like that telling me? This was probably about 3.5 years ago this happened. And she was a very nice person. At the time, I took it personal, but I've since run into her. Okay. Actually, I went to a seminar in L.A. She happened to be in the same seminar that I was in. But the seminar that I went to was a seminar that I would not have gone to 3.5 years ago. Okay. And it's because her philosophy and my philosophy, we were on two different pages, but I'm starting to grow into where she is in terms of her perspective on life and how she thinks and her philosophy. So I went to this seminar, and because my mindset has changed so much, now I see her at the seminar, and I had to go tell her. I had to go apologize. I had to basically say, listen, you were absolutely right. You and I were not on the same page. You were someplace totally different than I, and I can appreciate it now. I said, then I could not, and I took it personal. She said, I never meant it to be personal. I thought you were a great guy. I just didn't have time to waste, and I knew we weren't on the same page.
You could appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I had to go apologize and let her know. I got it now. I totally get it. And thank you. There's an awakening that's taking place in me. Not that I'm trying to stir something up where, we could start over from scratch. I just want you to know I appreciate it. So, we're cool. We text each other now every so often. She shoots me something to read, and I text her back and say, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, let me just go to do a little commercial break, and then when I come back, I want to talk about activities because you brought that up, which segues into the money aspect. I just want you to know, everyone, Open Heart with Lisa is brought to you by Inventing A to Z, inventingatoz.com. Inventing A to Z is for any of you inventors, if you have an idea, or if you've never had anyone who can help you take your invention from point A to point Z, Lisa Aisalis, who is the CEO of Inventing A to Z, can help you bring your ideas into a creation. She can take you, let's say she can present you to the Shoppers Channel, QVC, Shop HQ. She can help you get into stores. So if you're an inventor and you need some help, go to www.inventingatoz.com. Speak to Lisa Aisalis. Now back to you, Mr. Henry from New York. You brought up activities, and the dating process, if you're in it long enough, will lead to activities. And I want to talk about the money aspect. And talking to a gentleman, and he said something to me, and I understand, although I'm a woman, I understand that when a gentleman decides, well, the gentlemen who have dated me in the relationship have dated me. They've been such a blessing that we've gone out, they've footed the bill, and I understand money doesn't grow on trees, and I'm very appreciative personally when, boyfriends have been a blessing to me. I don't care if they take me out for ice cream. They don't have to do that. And there was a gentleman who said to me, Lisa, I don't mind being in a relationship or dating and basically financing and, paying for all these little, let's go out to dinner, let's go to movies, all this. But the thing that bothered him the most was when he's with someone who's not appreciative. He also didn't like where there were certain women who had this expectation as if he is supposed to spend his money, as if the privilege should be his. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about when you're meeting a woman and going out on dates, and how do you feel about covering the bill? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I think the problem arises, though, when it's expected that's what you have to do. Mm-hmm. And I think there's an attitude that comes along based off of the woman that you're with, that is something that you have to do. It's almost like if you don't, there's an attitude. I am totally fine with it, but I don't want the attitude that that's what I have to do. I choose to. Mm-hmm. I choose to because I want to, not because I have to. And I think every so often it would be nice for someone to say, let me get this. Let me handle this. And I would probably still say, I got it, but just the thought, because it's the thought that counts. And I think for some women, it comes with a lot of extra in terms of the attitudinal issues that, you're supposed to do this.
Right.
And I just disagree with that aspect. I think that that's something we should do because we want to do, not because you feel like we have to.
Where do you think that comes from with some women, not all of them, but I've known, I know a lot of women. I know some women who feel that, I might as well say it like this, he needs to be happy that he's taking me out. It's almost like, you need to be blessed. You need to be happy and you know that you're blessed. You're in my presence. So if you got to foot this bill, I don't care how much the dinner is, $200, you need to be very happy. Do you think that's an arrogance that some women have when they can? Mm-hmm, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it is. I almost liken it to this generation that we see coming up now, because this generation that comes up now has an attitude of entitlement. Mm-hmm. And I think that, some do have that same attitude of entitlement because, men really don't mind spending money, or if a man doesn't mind picking up the check on the first date. But I think that with that, it also, women think that, what is he expecting? Because if he's expecting something, I'm not giving him anything, So they almost feel like it's an exchange. But I think, there should be a conversation again. There, you should communicate. What are your expectations of me? If you're paying for dinner tonight, which I'm appreciative, thank you very much. But what are your expectations of me? How hard is that? That's very simple for me, for you to ask me my expectations. I'm not expecting anything. I really just want to take you out, get to know you, learn as much as I can about you. And if something happens, great. If not, so be it also. Doesn't mean that I don't want to see you tomorrow. So I think that would put a lot of women at ease if they would communicate and have that conversation. But, oftentimes that's not that conversation is not had.
Yeah, you know what? I wonder why. It's funny. I think that sometimes I was telling a girlfriend of mine. I've been talking about this topic for about a couple of months with different people, but I was talking about the when you meet people, and often there's really never a conversation about, okay, we're in a relationship. Somehow, we start putting these titles on each other, like we merge into something, and I'm not aware of it, he's not aware of it. Next thing you know, folks are saying we're in a relationship, and sometimes with that, for some women, they feel okay, and the finances and my ability to ask you for money comes with that. I know a gentleman, and I said this to him. He's one of my best buddies. This was years ago. He met somebody, and he was very, very generous. And I said to him, I said, and he made a lot of money. And I said to him, I said, be very careful what you tell her about your finances, because you don't want her liking you for the wrong reason. Because for some, it's not that we like you that much. We like the bank account that's attached to you and what we feel we can get out of you, and financially. And I say that because I always want, I don't have any children, but if I had a son, I would want my son to safeguard himself personally. I wouldn't want him to be stingy, especially if he were successful. I would just want him to, move like you were talking earlier. Do baby steps. You don't have to start off taking her to the most elaborate place. I think sometimes it's good to start from a position of humility. Hey, let's do a little breakfast and see, and then graduate with, from, let's go to breakfast, then go to someplace fancy, but get to know the person. You don't have to shower her with diamonds, even though I know that there are some men who will do a lot initially. But you really have to be careful. Not all women, it's just the truth. Not all women care so much about your heart as they do your finances. There are a lot of women who are going to love you regardless if you don't have a dollar. But there are some, it's all about the finances. So how do you feel? Let's say if you were dating a woman and you dated her, Henry, for about a year, and she said to you, listen, I'm short on my rent. Do you have $1,000?
That's a no-brainer. If we dated for about a year and she's asking me this, that's a no-brainer. Of course, if we've dated for a year, we've established a relationship. We've established a rapport. So therefore, because we have a rapport, we've been in each other's lives for a year. I would absolutely, positively help her. If I had the means, that's a no-brainer, yes.
Well, how do you feel if you were dating somebody for 2 months?
It depends, because I don't think that every case is the same. I just think it depends on the individual. I think that, the eyes are the window panes of a person. And so if you can see through a person, you can see some people are serious for reals and there's a connection. I think there's synchronicity. I think you understand when some people are synchronized together and they have something. Because I believe that the life that we live, people come into our lives for reasons. And we have to explore those reasons and understand what those reasons are. Maybe I was meant to be in her life at that time to help her in that moment. And if I have the ability to do so, then, if I feel led to do so, whether it's a month and a half, 2 months, or whatever, that's what I feel like I'm led to do, and I'll do it. And I don't think that there's a clear-cut case for every individual because each person is different.
So let me ask you this question. We've got 6 minutes, and I really want you to expand on this because there was a gentleman who said to me, he said that he gives so much of himself to the woman that he's with, but he finds that it's not reciprocal. And he said it takes so little to satisfy me, but she doesn't even know what that is. And he said it's not like I'm looking for her to give me money. I'm just talking about the intangibles. Just show up. She's not someone who will sit down and, I don't even think they're together right now, to be quite honest with you, but who really cares about his day, cares about what's going on in his life, that listening ear. She's not the type of person, and he's helped her financially a lot. I mean, thousands of dollars, right? But she's not the type of person, and he's a hard worker, who would cook anything for him. She doesn't do the clothes. In other words, she doesn't really help at all.
But is
she
that way? Is she that way because that's who she is, or is she that way because she's doing that just to him? Now, is that her personality? Is that the person that she is? I mean,
well, you know what?
That has to be understood.
Well, here's the thing. It's the person that has shown up for him. So if she's something different than that, he's never met that person. But the person he's met is great at receiving, and she's not the person who gives. How do you feel if you were dating a woman and you wanted a reciprocal relationship where it's just not you? I mean, you're helping her financially. You I don't want to say you're helping, but I mean when you date or, if there's ever a need, whatever. What would it take for you? And since marriage and dating are not the same, what is it that you're looking for a woman to give you that would be tangible?
If it's not reciprocal, then first of all, I got to find out what's her threshold.
Okay.
If her threshold is minimum, then then I understand that. If her threshold is medium, then but if she has a maximum threshold, then okay, because you have to find what fits and what works for you. Like, if you need somebody who's reciprocal, then you got to find that person. But if you have somebody that's not reciprocal, you can't make that person reciprocal because that's not their person. That's not who they are.
Well, Henry, what is it that you like, though? What is it that you like?
I just like I like someone who is who compliments me and doesn't compete with me. I think that's extremely important to me. Somebody who compliments me and doesn't compete against me. That's extremely important.
Explain what you mean by that.
Complimenting me just means that you know how to fill in where I am weak, and you know how to make my weaknesses look like strengths, as opposed to dwelling on my weaknesses and you're knocking me down over my weaknesses, as opposed to pushing me up along with my weaknesses and not competing with me. Competing means if I say I like Chicago, but Philly's much better. Well, why is Philly better? Because it just is. Okay, well, you like Philly, I like Chicago, great. Then if I say I like vanilla, but I like chocolate. Why do you like chocolate? Because I just like chocolate. Well, it seems to me like you don't like anything that I like, and every time I like something, you want to compete with me. Why are we competing? I just don't understand that. And there are some women that just do that. That doesn't work for me. I don't need somebody that competes with me. I need somebody that compliments me. So there's a huge difference. And a lot of times people find themselves in that situation where they're just competing against each other. They're not complimenting each other. That's a bad recipe.
Okay, that's a bad recipe. What else is what else is it that you would want the woman that you're in relationship with to bring to the relationship that would make you happy?
What makes me happy?
That cooks?
No. Here's what makes me happy. What makes me happy is a woman being herself. I don't want a woman coming in changing to please me because she feels like that's going to make me happy. I want her to be herself. And if I find that a woman is herself and she is extremely happy with being herself, because I don't want to change you. I don't want to train you. I don't want you to be something that you're not, because at the end of the day, if you're something you're not, you're going to be who you are at some point, and who you are may be somebody that doesn't work for me. I need you to just be you.
Right.
I don't need a mask. I don't need any of that. Just be you. So what I like is a woman who is extremely happy in her own clothes, in her own skin.
Well, we're going to close right there. A woman who's extremely happy in her own clothes and her own skin. Henry, thank you. I want to know, can you do, I want to do 3 more shows with you. So you all listen out for Henry, because we're going to do the next segment. You'll hear the next recording. Henry, we're going to be talking about, do you think dating should be held to the same standards as marriage? But we're going to talk about the aspect of sex. Thank you once again for listening to Open Heart with Lisa, where his heart matters. God bless you.